Somewhere in ancient Babylon, around 1800 BCE, a merchant presses his fingertip into wet clay to seal a business deal. He's not thinking about patterns or ridges or the tiny swirling lines carved into his skin since before he was born. He just needs to close a deal. What he left behind, baked into that clay forever, was one of the most powerful identification tools the world has ever known. He just had no idea. And that's the real story of fingerprints. Something that was always there, hiding in plain sight on the ends of every human finger for thousands of years before anyone understood what they were looking at. Here's something most people never consider. Your fingerprints were never designed for crime scenes. Evolution built them for something far more urgent: survival. The ridges increase friction between your skin and any surface you hold. The grooves act like drainage channels, funneling moisture away from the contact point, exactly like tire tread channels water off a wet road, keeping your grip locked even when conditions turn against you. For thousands of years, they quietly helped farmers grip plows, warriors hold swords, potters shape wet clay. Every person who ever climbed a tree or carried a child across a river was being invisibly assisted by those little swirling lines. They never knew. But grip is only half the story. Your fingertips contain specialized nerve endings called mechanoreceptors, packed just beneath the skin. The ridges amplify microscopic vibrations from any surface you touch, sending richer signals to your brain. This is why you can feel the difference between silk and rough stone with your eyes closed. This is why you can detect, within a tenth of a second, the exact moment something starts slipping from your grasp. In 7000 BC, a bricklayer in Jericho is pressing mud bricks with his bare hands, but embedded in those bricks, preserved for 9,000 years, are his thumbprints. Perfectly clear, each one as individual as the man who made them. He didn't leave them as proof of anything. He left them because that's just what hands do when they press into soft clay. The clay remembered him for 90 centuries. He never gave it another thought. Fast forward to Babylon. Around 1800 BCE, merchants pressed fingers into clay tablets to seal business deals, not as identity signatures, but as ritual marks. They were sitting on the greatest identification tool in history and treating it like a rubber stamp. In China, around 221 BC, officials were already collecting handprints from crime scenes. No science, just instinct. A creeping awareness that body marks were personal, traceable. And in the 1300s, a Persian scholar named Rashid al-Din Hamadani wrote something nobody had dared put on paper: that no two individuals have fingers exactly alike. By the 1600s, European scientists were examining fingerprints under microscopes. Nehemiah Grew described the ridges to London's Royal Society in 1684. Marcello Malpighi mapped them so precisely, a skin layer still bears his name, but neither connected any of this to identity. In 1823, Czech professor Johannes Perkinje built the first fingerprint classification system. 9 distinct types. The world ignored him entirely for 60 years. In 1858, British civil servant William Herschel is in colonial India, drowning in fraud. So he starts requiring full handprints on official documents, but over time, something remarkable emerged. Prints from the same people never changed. A man's fingerprint at 25 was identical to the one he left at 55. Fingerprints were permanent. Nobody had proven that before. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, a Scottish doctor named Henry Faulds noticed something extraordinary. Fingerprints of long-dead craftsmen still clearly visible on thousand-year-old pottery. He became obsessed. In 1880, he published a letter in Nature. Fingerprints should identify criminals, and he proved it immediately. A man in his neighborhood was wrongly accused of theft. Faulds compared the prints. They didn't match. He identified the real culprit. The innocent man walked free. One print, two outcomes. Justice working exactly as it should. Then Sir Francis Galton gave fingerprinting its scientific foundation. His 1892 book proved prints are unique, permanent, and fall into three categories: arches, loops, and whorls. He calculated the odds of two people sharing an identical print. 1 in 64 billion. By 1901, Scotland Yard had officially adopted fingerprinting. The age of forensic science had arrived. But here's something nobody talks about. What happens when two people touch the same surface? A wine glass passed around a table. Those prints don't erase each other. They layer, like two photographs double exposed on the same film. These are called latent overlapping prints. For most of history, they were written off as unusable, but overlapping prints have sent innocent people to trial. Evidence misread, misattributed, lives destroyed. Today, infrared spectroscopic imaging separates prints by chemical signatures. AI systems can untangle overlapping patterns in seconds. What was once unusable is becoming readable. One more thing worth knowing. Your fingerprint is more reliable than your signature. A signature is a learned habit. It can be studied, practiced, and forged. It changes with age, illness, and stress. Your fingerprint doesn't. It formed in the womb and stays the same for your entire life. 1 in 64 billion odds of a match. That's why courtrooms, border crossings, hospitals, and government databases all reach for the fingerprint, not the pen, when identity truly matters. So let's come back to that merchant in Babylon. Pressing his finger into clay. Closing his deal. Thinking about nothing except getting home. He didn't know he was leaving something permanent. He didn't know he was leaving something unique. He certainly didn't know that the same mark would one day identify murderers, free the innocent, and stand in courtrooms as evidence no forger could undo. It took humanity 9,000 years to understand what it was sitting on. But that's how the greatest discoveries work. Not one brilliant moment, but a long, slow awakening. Generation after generation pressing fingers into clay, into ink, into powder, each one understanding just a little more than the last. Now look at your own hand. Those ridges have been with you since before you took your first breath. There is not another set like them anywhere on earth. You've been carrying proof of your existence your entire life. You just never looked closely enough to see it. If this changed how you see your own hands, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.